Um, Ernie Bob Kratzky's got 3 minutes as a sponsor. He's gonna be able to screen share when you do his little intro, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, I think it's showtime. Shall I begin?
Sure. I have 8:59, but close enough. Go ahead.
It's 9 o'clock on the dot.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. We normally do the Pledge of Allegiance. What we're going to do is play the national anthem. Are you keyed up for that, Frank?
Yes.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Bravo. Anybody who thinks that's easy, ought to try it. That's a difficult song to sing. I want to thank our sponsors, Louis, Joe, Avalon, and Evelise, Toomey sponsor, and Shay, and Kelly and Dubin, and Quintaro, and Gershow Recycling and Covanta. These are our annual sponsors. These are the people who give us a boost in the beginning of the year to help us finance what we do. And today's morning sponsors is Blue Zap and Bestech. Are the Blue Zap people here? That would be Blue Zap would be Jay Ryan. Is he on?
He is.
Jay, where are you? Okay, you're here.
Yeah, there we go. Jay's on.
Having trouble muting.
You want me to go to the other sponsors?
No, Jay, you can talk. Jay's got his mic on now. Go ahead.
I'm in.
Okay, tell us about your company because we want to give you a little exposure for the benefit of your sponsorship here.
Great. Well, thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jay Ryan from Blue Zap UV Disinfection, and I'd like to thank Ernie and Limba for providing us with the opportunity to sponsor today's program. I'm also very interested in hearing what Joe has to say, especially about Long Island's recovery from the coronavirus and the quarantine. But our company, Blue Zap UV Disinfection Company, was formed as a direct response to the coronavirus and the quarantine. We wanted to provide a safe and healthy way to disinfect facilities and protect people from the coronavirus. Everyone needs to disinfect their facilities in order to get employees and customers back into the building. The virus is real and people are justifiably afraid of it. We need to give them peace of mind that they're safe and coming back. But are we making wise decisions by hiring disinfection companies that spray toxins and chemicals all over the premises? Environmental health experts say no. In the rush to disinfect due to the coronavirus, unsafe chemicals are being used, and supposedly safe chemicals are also being used incorrectly. Spray companies use what they call or they claim are EPA approved or hospital grade disinfectants. these seeming endorsements for safety are not what they sound like. And if you'd like to learn more about that, please reach out to me for more information. But BlueZap will fully disinfect your facilities, including COVID-19, using only ultraviolet light. We use no
How often do you have to repeat the process, Jay?
The answer to that is as often as you can. There's no disinfection service, although there's some that claim they do. There's no disinfection service that lasts longer than, in our case, as soon as we finish, and in the chemical cases, as soon as they dry. There are companies that claim they can protect you for 30, 60, or 90 days, but there's absolutely no independent research to back that up. So we tell people you need to do a deep clean, and you need to have us come in and disinfect basically as often as you can afford, because once somebody comes in and starts coughing, if they have COVID, then you're no longer disinfecting. But we fully disinfect, including COVID-19, using only ultraviolet light. We use no toxins or chemicals. We spray no liquids. We leave no residue or odor. UV is used in hospital operating rooms. The technology has been around for decades. We have dozens of academic, government, and industry group research papers to back up our claims. So if this sounds appealing, contact us. We'll explain our process. BlueZap can give you peace of mind that your facilities are free from germs and germicides. And I'll keep it short, and I'm very open to questions.
Okay, if anyone has a question, just ask it now. All right, Robert Kraske is our other sponsor, and he's with Best Tech. I knew a company named Best Tech I used to do business with when I was an actor, providing lighting for staging. You're not any part of that.
That's not me, no.
Okay. Tell us about your company, though.
Sure. So, so my company, Best Tech, what we focus on is helping companies use technology better. And the biggest focus now, what we're doing is with Office 365, which I'm sure many of you are using. But there's things that many of you, or I might even venture all of you, there are things you don't know that you have that are very powerful tools, very easy to use, and can really make a big difference in your business in a very short period of time. So what I wanted to do is just give you a quick 2-minute demo of a couple of the main features and productivity things, especially as remote workers, what you can do. So, are you seeing my screen now?
No, we see you.
Okay, do you see my screen?
Yeah. Oh, your screen. I don't know what you mean by that.
It says I'm seeing your screen.
I'm sharing, okay. So you're seeing
Microsoft 365.
You're seeing my logo. It says bookings in the corner of the screen.
Yeah,
right.
I
Okay.
see that. Yes.
All right. Good. So anyway, Office is not just Word, Excel, PowerPoint anymore. There are all these powerful tools that you can do amazing things with. Right. Teams, forms, approvals, bookings. So the quick thing I'm going to give you again, quick run through and quick showing of what these things can do for you really quick. Okay, Teams is an application. You may have heard people saying, hey, should we use Teams for our meeting? Should we use Zoom as we're using now, or GoToMeeting? All these things are meetings, right? And to me, it doesn't matter which one you use. They're all pretty much similar. If you get used to using it, they're all pretty easy, okay? But Microsoft Teams is different than just a meeting, okay? This is the key part of Microsoft Teams. It's, you'll see on the left a list of all the different teams that I'm in. I have a lot more teams than most people would have because I work with 20 different companies and I have all teams set up for them. So I've got a lot of extra things and things I demo. But these on the left are my teams. And then in your team, you have all your chat communications. So you can see I'm scrolling through all the messages and stuff so all your team messaging, your instant messaging on your phone is now in Teams. So everything, all your conversations are here in one place. It has a thing for files. So automatically, if you share a file or share a picture or something into the chat, into the team, it automatically gets put in this filing cabinet, which this one doesn't have anything. So let me click on one that does have, sorry. Okay, so here's all my messages. I added in this document here, got shared to the group, IMCP America's scorecard. if I go to the files, it automatically puts it in the filing cabinet. So you don't ever have to go look for it. You see, it's listed right here in the filing cabinet. So this is tied up right in with your team and your communications. Your communications aren't just chat. You can actually, in your message, open at the bottom of the screen. I'm losing the window at the bottom. At the bottom, there's a button to turn on video. So you can have a meeting recorded right in your chat channel that everybody can attend. And it also, again, if you miss like a board meeting, you can go back and attend it the next day. So all these features, all these things are tied up, and then you can add in special things. You do a notebook up along the top. You can make like a custom website within your team. So everything you do in your job is right in one single place, and you never have to leave it. So it's very customizable. That's
Okay. Is that the message?
yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for being a sponsor. And now I get the pleasure of inviting Joe Campolo, who has been a friend of Limba for a time now. He's a business leader. Joe is a member of the Long Island Business Hall of Fame and a very recognized leader on Long Island. He is very influential in the HIA, and he has been helpful to the Limba itself in the past. Joe, I think there's a myriad of things that you might want to talk about. So why don't you give us an overview, and then we'll give you questions on how we go forward.
Joe, you've got to unmute yourself now. There you go.
Yep. So, okay, great. First of all, thanks, Arnie, and thanks to the good people at Limba. We have a long-standing relationship, and it's organizations like Limba and others that are going to help keep Long Island connected and moving forward right now. As Ernie mentioned, I'm a business lawyer. I've been representing businesses here on Long Island for the last 25 years. And my law firm, pretty much that's all we do is represent businesses in some municipalities here on Long Island. And I'm also chair of the board of the HILI. And I think from those two vantage points, I've had sort of a unique perspective on what's been going on these past few months. And I can talk about that a bit, and certainly talk about anything you guys want to discuss. You know, in March, right when the governor announced and the president announced that we were going to need to shut down the economy, you know, like everybody else, I knew that that was going to be something we just had never gone through before. And so we thought, from our perspective, what would be the best thing we could do to support Long Island businesses? I mean, if Long Island businesses don't make it, I don't make it. That's just the reality. There's no need for a business lawyer if there are no businesses. So the first thing we immediately did was launch a coronavirus hotline. And what we enabled people to do, clients or no clients, was any business could call us and receive legal guidance free. And we figured that would be a great support system, because if you guys remember, at the height of this, every single day new information was coming out, every single day new guidelines were coming out, and there was mass sort of confusion going on out there. And so I appointed a bunch of our attorneys to serve as the liaisons to that hotline. And we thought it would be helpful. It was overwhelmed, right? We were overwhelmed by the amount of requests, hundreds of requests, and still to today we get requests from businesses and business folks who just were lost. And look, we were lost. There was no crystal ball that we had. Nobody had ever lived through this before, but we dedicated people to really doing the research and providing clarity, because in times like this, what we really need are facts and clarity, so that we can make the best decisions we possibly can. And it was probably the scariest and most horrible 6 weeks I've had as a lawyer, those first 6 weeks when this pandemic hit, because every single call was, I don't know how to stay in business. I don't know how to stay in business. I have to let people go that have worked with me for 20 years. How do I do? What do I do? And it was just question after question, heartbreaking story after heartbreaking story. And I don't think anybody will ever, who's lived through that and who owns a business, will ever forget those terrifying horrifying weeks that we had. And the federal government, to their credit, acted very quickly in bringing out stimulus dollars. Now, the impact of the effectiveness of stimulus dollars will be debated for years, I'm sure. But I'll tell you what, all of a sudden, 3 letters, PPP, became incredibly, incredibly important in the business community, because the PPP loans that were part of the CARES Act were a much needed source of revenue and income. Also, the additional liquidity that the federal government pumped into the economy, I think, has helped stabilize the stock market to the point where it is. I host a weekly webinar called Business Unusual, because there's certainly nothing usual about these times. And the most unusual thing to me right now is the stock market and what's going on with it. But all I can say is thank God, because in the end of March, 15,000 had gone down to 12,000, we would be in a much, much different position right now from an economic perspective. It's not to say
Joe, has your firm been able to facilitate the money coming from the government to the individual businesses here on Long Island? I get the impression it's not being done very efficiently, and the wrong people are getting the money. Is that your impression too?
Well, the answer of who the wrong people are, I don't know the answer to that. We need every
Well, the wrong
single
people would
business.
be the multi-million-dollar corporations who have been sitting on $1 billion of excess money. I don't think they need it. But my restaurant that I frequent does.
Right, but here on Long Island, I don't think we have situations where these multi-billion-dollar companies have been taking money. For probably 50% of our time was spent making sure that business owners that needed to apply for the funds got the right banks, got the right lenders, got the right accountants, got the right resources to be able to to do it. And I feel pretty good that here on Long Island, those who applied were able to get it. Now, let's not forget, there were 2 rounds. The first round, not everybody got it, and it was absolutely terrifying for the businesses that didn't get it in the first go around. The second go around, I think folks that applied, for the most part, everybody's gotten it. There's an excess of funds, and they just spread out the time to be able to apply for those funds, because they want to make sure people are going to get those funds. There's also discussions now about another $1 trillion relief package that's going to sort of pivot the PPP lending program to industries that need it the most. And I'm assuming that's going to be food service, restaurants, hospitality, and things like that, which have just been absolutely shellacked by this whole, this whole process. And so what we saw was catastrophic unemployment, right? And what we have to remember is jobs are everything. Jobs are productivity. Productivity is GDP. GDP drives the economy. The economy drives national security and all of our freedoms and everything else that we need, right? So we really
jobs are our sanity as well. You
well,
know what?
That's exactly right, Ernie. I mean, the mental health and the self-worth that people attribute to. Part of the other calls we get on a regular basis is, I'm losing my mind. I'm absolutely losing my mind. I'm home. I'm not out. I'm not networking. I'm not socializing. I'm sick of Zoom. I'm just sick of it. And what can I do? How can I do this? I mean, even normal recreational behaviors, which we have to be mindful of. One of the things about Long Island, and we all love Long Island, and we talk about Long Island. And when we talk about Long Island, what do we talk about? We talk about the quality of life. We talk about the school districts. We talk about the beaches. We talk about the restaurants. We talk about the wineries. We talk about the arts and the Stoller Center and the Tillis Center, right? That 6 months ago was the greatest value proposition for Long Island. Well, every single one of those boxes right now is in grave jeopardy because of coronavirus. I mean, restaurants, and we represent hundreds of restaurants, literally, in some capacity. It's unbelievable and unconscionable what's going on with restaurants right now, but what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So many people say to me, I want to support them. I really do. But, the days of going out on a Friday night and getting a great bottle of wine and great service and ambiance and experience, they're not here. They're not here, and people are just not going to spend the money to go to a restaurant and sit at an isolated table with two people. It's really kind of weird and subdued. You're served in masks and gloves. You're not exactly sure what to do, right? And so,
Another thing, Joe, is the theater. We have two, well, we have more than two. We have several live theaters here that performing arts, and they're all pretty good. And we love to go to the theater, but I wouldn't feel comfortable sitting in a theater today, and I don't know when I will. I think that's going to be a painful change.
Yeah, so I actually sit on the board of the Stoller Center at Stony Brook, and the reason I got involved and we made a major donation was because I love the arts. I love the theater. I love being at live performances, and I love being able to drive 3 miles from my house and have free parking at the university and go see a show on Saturday night, right?
Yes.
As of right now, so the earliest prediction for Broadway is January. For the Stoller Center, right now they would be neck deep in their film festival, their world-renowned film festival. That's been moved to a virtual format. They're going to see how that goes. But it's been heartbreaking, right? It's been heartbreaking. And the other sort of unfortunate piece of this whole thing is, because it's a national election year, it's been very difficult to have some sort of cohesive and comprehensive response on a nationwide basis. The politics is everything in this country, and it's a big year. There's a lot at stake. And so I think we're going to be stuck in this mud. I think we're going to be stuck sort of in this limbo, not to be confused with limbo, but in this limbo until January, until we get past the election, until we get past the contentiousness, and then folks have some breathing room to be able to sit down and say, what the hell are we really going to do on a nationwide basis to drive this? I mean, state by state for a virus is very difficult. We're seeing that. It's very difficult to have a state by state response because the virus doesn't understand boundaries. The virus doesn't understand what a governor is, doesn't understand what a town municipal board is, doesn't understand anything, just travel.
Ernie, we forgot to mention the raise your hand, the way people can interact. And I just want to do that because there are 36 people that are listening. They can't ask questions. On your keyboard, you can either press Alt Y or Option Y, and that will raise your hand. And then I can unmute you and you can ask a question. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the schools too, Joe. When we were kids, we said, "Oh, I don't want to go to school. Well, I'd rather play hooky. I'd do this." Kids love school. They really do. They are missing a lot, not only in ways of education, but the socialization of a school, being in a classroom full of a bunch of brats just like me. And I think that we're hurting them badly. But on the other hand, I'm scared too for those kids to go back. What's your take on that? Where do you think we should be going?
Yeah, so I actually had a conversation with John Corrado, and John owns Suffolk Transportation. They're the largest school bus company here on Long Island. And the discussion I had with him is exactly that. Like, how is this all? Let's not forget about the social value of schools, not just to kids. Okay, so Ernie, you were probably a good kid. On the days I played hooky, I got into nothing but trouble and would have continued to get in trouble had it not been for school. And my good friend Bob Kratzky's on the line here, and he and I went through school together, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, there would have just been trouble, and I think honestly, I think we saw that tip of that right when peaceful protesters and opportunists who had way too much time on their hands began to riot and loot. I think that's what happens when people have too much time on their hands and kids are not in school. They're going to find some outlet, and it's probably not going to be productive, right? So, A, we have to look at the socialization value. B, we have to look at the value of the education that's being received. And I'm sorry, there is, just like in an office, and I understand the need for being able to use remote technology, but there is an absolute increased level of education and productivity when you can socialize. when you can have what I call the water cooler chatter, the small conversations, something you might not bother a person with a text for, but you start dialoguing on it and it leads to, greater, deeper understandings of things, and you're going to lose that in collaboration. One of the things that higher education always touts is the value of the network, the value of the relationships you make when you're attending school, going on into future business for productivity, and we'll lose that if it's just online. But to me, the actual incredible part of it, is what about the single mothers and the working families who rely on school and their kids being in school, okay, to be able to get out and work and put food on their table? What about the value of that, and where is that going to come in? Are we just going to keep people on social services forever, and what does that do for their productivity and their self-worth? People want to work. They want to be out and work. But with their kids home, what are they going to do? So you have half the people saying, I need the kids back in school, and half the people saying, I'm scared to death and don't want them back.
Ernie,
Did you have a question?
Ernie, we have a few people with their hands up. You want to take questions?
You want to select them? Go ahead.
Don J, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and you can ask your question.
All right, who do you got picked out?
Don J.
Sanjay?
Unmute.
Here we go. Okay. So one of the things I've been hearing this was a question related to PPP loans, and the issue with the forgiveness amount that's coming up is with the forgiveness period starting. The question that's being asked is, does a forgiveness amount become an income to the small business?
Yeah, so I saw my good friend Andy Ross is on here as well, a very eminent qualified CPA who can probably answer that better. My understanding is there's no guidance, but the assumption is going to be that will not be deemed income. But Andy, I would ask you to weigh in on this.
Yeah, what happened initially when they were advertising, for lack of a better term, these loans, they said that the income would not be taxable. But then about 6 weeks ago, the IRS threw a curveball in and said, all right, we understand that the proceeds won't be taxable, but we're not going to let you deduct the expenses that were forgiven. And that put everyone in a panic. But since then, Congress has hinted that the IRS's response is not acceptable. So the answer is we're in limbo. And this is affecting, we do business valuations, and we don't know, how to treat a potential tax effect in the business valuations. We really don't know yet. In the next few weeks, we should have guidance.
Yeah, and my assumption, and that's one of the issues. I'm going to be having a conversation with Congressman Lee Zeldin next week. That's actually one of the biggest pieces of it, is it's causing so much uncertainty. Let's talk about PPP, because I think it's really important for everybody to understand sort of my perspective on it, right? So PPP was a necessary lifeboat. What I like to say is, come April 1st, we all found ourselves on a deserted island not knowing what the hell to do. And PPP is a life raft that was floated to the deserted island with 2 months worth of supplies on it. So we have 2 months, the loan amount was 2 months worth of payroll, rent, and utilities, which is great, which is absolutely great. We needed it. We absolutely needed it, right? But now we're seeing, so what happened is we got a bounce from employment numbers because people with PPP said, great, I can bring people back and try and bring some money, particularly in the lower paying jobs like restaurants, to try and capture the summer months, critical. But what we're gonna see now that PPP dollars are running out, so people got it in early April or early May, so you got 60 days past there, PPP dollars are running out. And you know what? People, I believe, are not going to start reinvesting their own dollars. So the PPP dollars are government dollars that can be forgiven, a gift. And so we don't mind investing money that's not ours and seeing if we can generate some revenue from it. But the business owners I'm talking to now that PPP dollars have run out, are saying, wait a minute, we're still on the deserted island. The supplies are running out, and the rescue ship, which in my opinion is the vaccine, the rescue ship is still not in sight. We know it's out there. We know we'll see it one day, but we don't know what that day is. and until we see that rescue ship on the horizon, we're going to be very cautious about how we spend our dollars, right? And that's going to be, I believe, the challenge of the fall. Not to mention that we're seeing resurgence and other states starting to close down, so that makes us very conservative and nervous, understandably, and not to mention that we have an election coming up. So, you know, we have to understand, in my opinion, we're in this for the long haul. It's not really going to be until January that we see some sort of comprehensive approach and real meaningful recovery. What Congress is doing, and look, God bless them, they're doing their best right now. Nobody has a good answer to this. What they're doing, though, is trying to stitch together the economy by keeping it liquid so that we don't have an 08-09 situation in a banking crisis. But, you know, let's be honest, folks. Come January, we get a vaccine. Thank God, we'll have it. I believe in our scientists tremendously. We're going to be able to have a comprehensive approach to stitching together this economy. Yet we're probably going to have about $10 trillion in new debt that we have to deal with, all right? And let's understand what $10 trillion in new debt means. Let's understand that. And let's have a conversation about that. I understand we have no way around it right now. I get that. But we really have to be careful as to what we're doing right now with our dollars. And what I'm trying to tell Long Islanders, especially getting back to my initial comment of how much we all love Long Island. We are on Long Island, folks, because we love it. We are not on Long Island because it's a you know, a tax shelter like Florida. We are not on Long Island because it's easy living, because it's not. Okay, there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of bureaucracy. We're on Long Island because we love Long Island. And the very things that we love about Long Island right now are in the highest risk categories of not being able to recover. And so we have to invest our time and dollars into those things to make sure that Long Island remains Long Island and looks like Long Island and feels like Long Island and acts like Long Island once this thing is behind us. And that's where I think we all have to stick together.
So I'd like to introduce another thought. We once had major manufacturing on Long Island when we built airplanes for the military. That's all gone many years ago now. Do you ever see anything like that coming back?
Well, I do. So there's a couple of sectors. So one of the things I've done with my HIA-LI cap is we've done an intense study of the industrial park, the businesses in it, and the services. So while we lost the Grummins and the Fairchild, what we kept, and which are really starting to thrive here, are the ancillary manufacturing businesses that serve the larger aircraft and helicopter manufacturers. So a company like East West Industries, whose services, Sikorsky helicopters and everything else, are thriving here on Long Island. Pharmaceutical companies have made a huge inroads here on Long Island. Pharmaceutical companies are huge. And the reason why they made that is because the industrial park, and this is hats off to the county executives, County Executive Ballone, and prior to him, County Executive Steve Levy, who made the investments into sewers in the park. So pharmaceutical companies are uniquely in high need of sewer systems because of the ability they have to significantly contaminate watersheds if not properly drained. So because of the sewer systems, we are seeing pharmaceutical companies and biopharm companies rise up here on Long Island in droves. So those, I think, are really important indicators of what we're able to have. Now, when you see the travel industry get hit, and I've had this conversation with these manufacturers, the travel industry gets hit, that's sort of probably 20% of the business of these companies. It's really defense spending that they're tied to. And so I think defense spending budget for Long Island in particular is very important for the manufacturers here, which is the indicator I look at.
You know, Dan Sherry has a question. Frank, can you unmute him?
Dan, I don't have a Dan Sherry. How is he listed here? Is it Daniel's iPad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I just got unmuted, correct?
Great. Yes, you did.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, this is to both Ernie and Joe. This is a terrific session. Ken Burns, the historian and documentarian, recently was on TV, and he compared this pandemic in terms of importance in U.S. history. He compared it to the Civil War, the Depression, and World War II. When I first heard it, I just said, wow, I don't buy into that. But as I think about it more, read more, listen more, it's starting to make sense to me, and I'm just interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
Well, sure. First of all, Ken Burns happens to be one of my favorite guys. His documentary series on the Civil War and on Vietnam it's incredible. He's an incredibly well-researched, thoughtful person, and so I would respect anything that he has to say and any analogy he has to make, having studied history so much. You know, we're at a point where, from my perspective, the answer is we don't know. We have never, in the history of this country, in the history of civilization, as anybody can tell from its recorded, shut down a global economy and tried to start it. And therefore, we simply can't anticipate the next logical steps that are going to occur. We did not anticipate that there were going to be protests and riots and looting and that, and what that was going to do, and in the middle of a pandemic, have a major social movement that's going on right now, right? And what that means for the country, what that means for the country, we just don't know. You know, I am not, you guys and everyone on Long Island should know that I am a growth-oriented guy. I have taken risks over the years and bet on Long Island and continued to grow. I'm telling you, from my perspective, I am cautious right now. I am incredibly cautious right now about where this is all going. There are just too many variables. You know, right now, the biggest thing, in my opinion, that is our safety net and our safety blanket, and I saw my friend Harvey Feinberg floating around here somewhere, and I know he has opinions about these things. You know, the stock market hovering around $25,000, $26,000 is incredible, because it's allowing those businesses to have room on their balance sheets to be able to keep reinvesting in R&D and things. Okay, there's a boatload of cash sitting everywhere. So venture capital funds are sitting on record numbers, amount of cash, private equity funds, and individual households. So individual money market accounts right now are at the highest they've ever been in history. Okay, so what we need to be protecting is we need to be protecting the value of the dollar right now, more than anything, because what will hurt us the most is if we see that sort of decline. Like 08, 09, we saw it because the banking industry was in crisis. Right now, the banks are liquid, but if we are not careful, okay, we are not careful, and we keep mounting this debt, and we keep really putting out there these risky values on the stock market, we have a very, very, very big chance, in my opinion, of watching that market correct way down, watching the value of the dollar decrease, watching the debt really crush us and put us into a depression. And I think that that is what we have to be focused on long term. Yeah, we got to keep our businesses alive short term, but we got to keep them alive. And we got to hold on to our cash right now until we have a vaccine. And we got to make damn sure that we're not put into a global depression, which will happen if the banking community, okay, and how does the banking community really get into trouble? It's when commercial real estate owners start defaulting on their mortgages. That's where we're going to see big trouble, and that's what I'm nervous about in Q4. You know, commercial real estate landlords right now have been, for the most part, very respectful and very willing to work with people, but there comes a time when that runs out. There comes a time when they need to pay their bills and eat. And if we get into a banking crisis because there's a heavy default rate on those commercial loans, we're going to have an avalanche that needs to be protected against. So I'm hopeful that long term, that's what our Secretary of the Treasury, that's what our Congress, that's what our Senate banking committees are all focused on.
You know, Joe, in a crisis, we often see opportunities, and I'm always the eternal optimist. I think I said recently in an essay that I wrote, I don't ever want to see us go back to normal. I want us to go someplace better. Uh, do you see places where that can actually happen?
100%. So, you know, as zoomed out as I am, Zoom has taken on a new meaning in not in just socialization, but in our economy. You know, in the early 2000s, I was involved. I was president of a technology company that focused on video conferencing, and video conferencing just never could take off. It just never seemed to be able to take off. And it really took a pandemic to bring this into our world. And wow, how wonderful, Ernie, how wonderful it is to be able to blend, you know, live meetings with Zoom meetings. How wonderful it is, especially on Long Island, to be able to avoid traffic to get to a meeting that could easily be done over Zoom. How wonderful it is for us to all have learned how great it is to have a Zoom cocktail hour with family and friends of ours that are not, you know, that are not here and be able to do. So I think the introduction of video conferencing technology for those purposes is going to greatly improve and enhance not just our quality of life, but our overall productivity, right? And that's really what it's all about. If the GDP is going to take a hit, we as businesses and you know, the word pivot is being used in every other sentence right now, but we're going to have to find a way to reintegrate technology into live. And that's going to be a great thing. That's going to be a wonderful thing. The other big piece that I think this has shown us, which we've forgotten here on Long Island especially, is the value of home, right? So we spend all of our time pre-pandemic racing, running, buying these beautiful homes, having these beautiful properties on Long Island, planting beautiful gardens, okay, having beautiful food services and grocery stores that sold these wonderful foods. And what do? We were never home. We never appreciated our home. We never ate at home. Most of us never learned to really cook, okay? And so for 90 days, we were forced to sit in our house and really reconnect and understand the value and the beauty of a home and a place and a presence. And we saw that, amazingly, it actually helped the economy because we saw consumer goods jump in Q2, and consumer durable goods, things like refrigerators and kitchen cabinets and dishwashers and couches, sales were the highest ever. Why? Because everybody was in their house sitting around and saying, you know what, I want a new couch. I want a new refrigerator. I want to make it a place, a present. And I did. Look, I opted to, you know, to revisit my gardens. And it really brought me back to my childhood growing up in an Italian family here on Long Island. For whatever reason, we always had to grow tomatoes. We always had to grow peppers. We always had to grow zucchini. And it made me revisit it, and it was wonderful. It made people relearn how to cook, relearn how to.
The garden never looked so good.
Dinner. Wonderful. So I think there's a host of positives that we'll all bring out of this, and I agree with you. The new norm, you know, is going to be better than the old in many, many ways. We got to get there, though. We got to get there.
John Hill, did you have a question?
I'm going to interrupt again. We have people commenting to the speakers in the chat window here, and they can't read and talk to you. If you'd like to speak, then let me know, the administrator. You have to raise your hand or even ask in the chat window, and I'll activate your microphone. But the folks who are speaking are not reading the chat. I just want to let people know that. Sorry, go ahead.
Where were we?
Question? I think somebody had a question.
John, did you have a question, Mr. Hill? Okay, I thought you did. Let me see. I think I asked all the questions that I had on my mind, but if we have some more questions from the rest of the people. Oh yeah, Harvey, Big Mouth Harvey.
That there's a concern that New York and other states, such as California and Illinois, they may tax base will move out of the respective states. So what do we think about that? That there'll be a exodus.
So this is where you know, in my opinion, we're living through such historic times on so many fronts. So from an economic perspective, we're living through economic conditions that we've just never seen before as a country, and that economists are going to dissect for hundreds of years because it's that extraordinary time. We've also, for the past 4 years, let's say, lived through historic constitutional times. I mean, if nothing else, Donald Trump has made Americans, Congress, and the Supreme Court revisit parts of the Constitution and have constitutional discussions that we've never had before, simply because nobody's ever pushed certain buttons. But really what's going to come out of this the most is this notion of federalism and states' rights and state sovereignty. Right? It's an interesting dilemma. State governors for the first time in a long time, certainly in my lifetime having watched the history, are completely empowered, almost like kings in their fiefdoms right now, deciding by a thumbs up or a thumbs down who stays open, who stays closed, who's allowed on the streets, who's not allowed on the streets, whether we wear a mask or we don't wear a mask. That's completely been relegated and delegated to state governors, which, correctly or incorrectly is the way the system is. If you guys remember, it'll probably, when this all blows over, it'll probably go down as one of the strangest press conferences a president has ever had. But if you remember several months ago where President Trump declared he was in charge and he was going to take responsibility for how the recovery was going to occur and who was going to stay open and who was going to stay closed, and the states, went absolutely crazy because they said that it was a state response. And so the governors sort of planned the way they wanted to plan, but we don't have this cohesive meshing of federal response and state response anywhere close, and we haven't even figured out how that's supposed to work legally and practically, simply because it is Donald Trump that's president. It is it is an election year, and there's just no way anybody is going to concede any ground right now unless and until there's an election. And then come January, we're really going to start to see how our constitutional system is supposed to work, right? And the way it's supposed to work is, yes, governors are supposed to control their sovereign states and the health, wealth, and welfare and safety of their citizens, but the federal government and a federalist society is supposed to be looking at a comprehensive plan to make sure that the cohesiveness of the states remains. Well, we don't have that. We simply don't have that, right? I mean, we're saying, okay, on one day, citizens from 3 states have to quarantine. Now citizens from 9 states have to quarantine. Now citizens from 18 states have to quarantine. There's no comprehensive, cohesive plan whatsoever, which is hurting us. It's hurting our economy. It's hurting our recovery. It's hurting our health. It really is. And so we have to figure that out from not just an economic perspective, but from a constitutional perspective. So it's going to be really interesting to watch. And I think this, from Dan's question before about Ken Burns, I think this is exactly what Ken Burns has in mind when he talks about it, is the constitutional implications, what a democracy means, what a republic means, what rights do states have, what rights does the federal government have, what rights does the president have. I mean, the president could have simply declared this a national emergency and mobilized everything. Could have been within his purview. If it's a war, if it's a pandemic, he could have. And then where would we have been? We don't know, because it didn't happen. So I think we got a lot to play out, but we're not going to see anything except us stuck in the mud right now until this national election is over.
Frank, Harvey has a question. Can you unmute him?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, and thank you, Ernie, for referring to me as the big mouth. You and my wife must be speaking a lot now. In any way, Joe, thanks. This is really very informative. I'm just curious. My question is, when you speak of January, are you referring to January because we passed election, or because you're anticipating that we will have a vaccine, that things will start to get better? And, the reason I ask it is because this country has not really responded to this pandemic as the rest of the world, or much of the rest of the world, I should say. I don't like to generalize. And, all we've been asked to do is 3 things: wear a face mask, social distance, and wash our hands. And for some reason, our country, I'm not talking about Long Island now, our country has not been able to get their arms around that conceptually. And I think that has something to do with our numbers. And so I'm just curious, is it the election that we're going to be passed, or are you anticipating that
Well,
will
I think,
have.
and it's a great point. First of all, there are some comments about being cautious. Of course, I'm cautiously optimistic. I believe in the American spirit. I proudly, like many of you, I proudly serve my country in the Marine Corps because I believe in our freedom and our spirit. And entrepreneurial spirit is what gets me up and drives me every day. So I think the entrepreneurial spirit is going to drive a vaccine to be here on the horizon, probably in Q1 of 2021. That's at least what the leading scientists seem to think and seem to indicate. Plus, the election will be over. The election will be over. A new president will be ready to be sworn in. If it's Donald Trump, then Congress is going to have to find a way to work with him. He'll be a lame duck president, and hopefully there'll be a more cohesive plan that's there. If it's Joe Biden, then he's going to have to find a way to get past this and work. I mean, we need to stop the nonsense right now at the governmental level and really come together and have a plan. But I don't think anybody's going to do that until that election is over. And then once it's over, I think we, the people, have to insist that there's a comprehensive plan that goes into place, right? We the people are the ones that are going to work through this. The elected officials, and I tell them this. They're the ones who are making the decisions. Yet, they haven't lost a paycheck. They haven't lost their health benefits. They haven't had to go out on unemployment. They haven't had to feel the pain of what we, the people, have had to feel. And, shame on us. Shame on us for buying into all of this media hysterics and such hyper partisanship, rather than focus on what is the common good that makes us Americans, what is the common good that makes us New Yorkers, what is the common good that makes us Long Islanders, and let's move that spirit forward in spite of all the noise coming out of Washington, in spite of all the noise coming out of Albany. Okay, we here, this group of people here, okay, are the ones that are going to move it forward. If you look at any great nation, you look at any great organization. So I mentioned the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps was born by a bunch of drunk guys in a tavern, ton tavern, saying, we think we can create a better branch of the military, okay? And a couple of drunk guys poured out of there and formed what is the greatest, military unit ever in the history of the world. Yes, I'm biased because I'm a Marine, and I'll say that. The United States was formed, okay, by a bunch of guys sitting around saying, you know what, it's really wrong what England's doing. And I'd encourage everybody to read the Declaration of Independence. If you think that what's going on today in this country right now is terrible, it's absolutely nothing compared to the despotism that existed when England had rule over the colonies. And a group of people got around and said, we've had enough, we got to move forward and push it forward. And that's the power of us. That's the power of the American spirit. That's the power of American people. And that's the power of American entrepreneurs. So I think, Harvey, what you're seeing to some extent is, it is very simple. It seems very simple. Social distance, wear a mask. But because of the super highly charged environment that we're in, because of distrust of the media, because of difference in guidelines that came out of the CDC and the WHO, because of some people's hatred and some people's love of the administration, because of all that, we don't have any sort of buy-in yet, no universal buy-in on how we as a country are going to approach this and make sure that we get through it and make sure it doesn't happen again. And whatever and whoever the next president is, that needs to be the top priority is how are we going to get through this and how are we going to make sure this never happens again, right? Because we have done a really good job with our military protecting against attacks from other nations, from other people. We need to do better to make sure that this virus doesn't mutate, come back, and knock us on our ass again.
Thank you.
Tony B.
Good morning. Joe, I had a question regarding the state and municipal government budgets. As we all know, the sales tax revenues have been diminished substantially, and the budgets of all the municipals and states are in great pain. Do you see significant push for tax increases in the new year? Do you see your municipal layoffs? Do you see cutbacks in services? I'm wondering why you might be optimistic on that front.
Well, there will be tax increases. The question is it going to be town, county, state, federal, or all of the above, right? So there's no doubt that the state and local governments need some help from the federal government. The amount of resources that they had not budgeted for that they needed to expend to be able to help fight this pandemic have been incredible. And they're just not going to make it. They're just not going to be able to make it. They're not going to be able to close their budget shortfalls for 2020 unless they get some help. And it makes sense. I mean, you can't, as a private business owner, say, you know what, I need help. This virus came out of nowhere. It was no fault of my own. I need to keep my doors open. I need to keep my people paid. And so the federal government stimulus helps me. Well, that's what governors and county executives and town supervisors do every day. They have to keep their business, which is either their state, their county, or their municipality, open. They have to keep revenue coming in. They have to keep workers on the payroll. We tend to forget that they're actually running a business, right? And this pandemic hurt them the same way it hurt private businesses. And we need them to succeed. We need our state and local governments to stay vibrant. We need garbage to be picked up. We need police officers on the street. We need health and safety workers to be able to be there. We need these things. And so somebody's got to pay for it. And so the question is right now being debated and being modeled out by economists, you know, much, much smarter than me over what's the biggest way to amortize that debt so that it impacts taxpayers the least. Okay, so they're looking at if I have to increase, you know, county, state taxes versus give a relief from the federal government in some sort of system to those so taxes don't have to be raised. How does the American taxpayer get hurt the least in that regard? And that's what I think Secretary Mnuchin is working very hard with, along with the Fed chair, to try and figure out. What I anticipate is they're talking about another $1 trillion in stimulus dollars coming out of Washington. What I anticipate is that's going to be spread out to municipalities and states, and targeted industries that need it, like hotels, hospitality, and restaurants. And then they're going to sit down after all of this is said and done, and they're going to say, okay, we got $10 trillion of new debt. How do we make this hurt the economy vis-a-vis the American taxpayer the least? And that's going to be an incredibly daunting task, incredibly daunting. And so
we're getting
you know,
ready
that
to wrap. We're getting ready to wrap. So if anybody has some questions, would like to finish right
Last minute, anyone, you can unmute yourself if you'd like to, and ask a question. I'm checking here in the chat window to see if anybody has any final questions.
This is
Are
Robert.
we
Could I
all-
just
are
could
we
I just
all
add one quick
satisfied?
thing? Can you hear me, Ernie?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to,
Yes,
I added into the chat window a link for anybody from LIMBA or anybody on the meeting today for a free 30-minute consultation and training on all the productivity tools in Office. Show it how you can specifically use it for yourself and your business. So that's a link in the chat window.
Joe, I want to thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. You know, I had 4 questions written down here that would prompt me to get a conversation going. You covered so much more information than that, and I knew you would, because you know, you just have a pretty big scope in your thinking. Also, I want to comment on your writing. Your writing has a moral tone to it that is very necessary at this time, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ernie. Thanks for all your help and all the work you guys are doing at LIMBA. Really great stuff.
Okay. All right. So what's going to be coming up in the future is Bob Cattell. He's the chairman of the Advanced Energy Research and Technology Center, and his message for all of us is, what do we do about the future of energy on Long Island? And he has some thoughts, and it could be a little controversial, but I think I've been friends with Bob for so many years, and he's one of the smartest people I've met on Long Island. So I hope you'll be with us. Thank you all for participating, and have a great day. I think that we'll close at this point. Are we okay, Frank?
Everything went beautifully. Thanks, everyone. Have a good few weeks. See
Good
you.
job, Ernie.
Bye. Thank you.
And I say that for my big mouth.
We'll talk to you
Hello,
later.
everybody.
I'll talk to you later.
Good
All
job.
right, bye, everybody.
Bye.